What's up, guys? It's Lord Both here with another video, and the preliminary box office numbers for Captain America Brave New World are in, and they are about on par with what we thought they were going to be. This comes to us from The Hollywood Reporter, entitled Captain America Box Office Brave New World Opens to Bullish $100 million in the US, $192 million globally. And I just want to say, in that actual headline, they are already lying. The movie actually opened to 180 million globally, and they counted the actual 12 million from previews in the total tally, which is not something that's normally done, but clearly they're trying to actually boost the numbers for this movie already. The year's first tentpole is reporting a 4-day domestic opening of 100 million over the long Valentine's Day President's Day weekend, including 88.4 million for the 3 days. Numbers should shift again on Sunday, but either way, it's coming ahead of expectations. Globally, it's starting off with 192.4 million after launching to 92 million internationally. Again, it's actually 80 million. They added that extra 12 million from previews into the global tally. And saying this thing finished ahead of expectations is pretty wild. The high expectations for this film were 95 million. So it only finished 5 million ahead of where they thought it could be. Also, this alone is still not good. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania released 2 years ago on this very weekend, and it did 225 million over that period, had a far less budget, and I know they're trying to say that the budget for this movie was $180 million. That's just completely false. It's more like double, if not 3 times that, before marketing costs, because they shot this movie essentially 2.5 times. That $180 million is pretty much the cost of just the reshoots. So in terms of profitability, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which should be the direct comparison for this film, did absolutely terrible. This film did even worse. And because it didn't do as horrific as they thought it might be, their lowest expectations essentially, they're saying, oh, this is a great success. The movie scored one of the top domestic openings for the President's Day holiday and the biggest opening of 2025 to date. Yeah, that's where they give their little qualifier to make it sound better than it actually did do, because there was absolutely nothing else in theaters right now. I would think a Captain America Marvel movie would beat out Bridget Jones at the theaters. If it can't even beat that, we're in big trouble. And I like how they say, oh, the biggest opening of 2025 to date. It's the middle of February. We've had a month and a half. The article continues by saying that's no small feat, considering that many critics dismissed the movie, nor were some moviegoers impressed. Brave New World received a B- cinema score from audiences, the worst grade given to any title in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, this is the part where they try to pretend that this is an underdog film. Not all viewers feel the same, of course. Brave New World boasts a pleasing 80% audience ranking on Rotten Tomatoes. Now let's talk about that for just a second. How exactly do those two things jive? It got a B- audience score from CinemaScore, but it also has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, let's take a look at some of the other recent Marvel films on Rotten Tomatoes. Here are some of Marvel's recent projects and their audience scores. The Marvels has an 80% Rotten Tomatoes score. The Eternals has a 77% audience score, and it's considered to be widely one of the biggest failures, if not the biggest failure, and the worst Marvel movie ever made. Thor: Love and Thunder, widely considered to be the worst Thor movie, has a 77% from audiences. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, the movie that's closest to be compared to this movie in terms of when it opened and the amount of money it should make in that time frame, as a Marvel Cinematic Universe project, has an 81%. And again, it's considered to be one of the biggest failures of Marvel. So the answer is, if all these movies are failing, and the general consensus is that they're all bad and people don't like them, then why do they have such high audience scores? Well, the answer is pretty simple. A couple of years back, Rotten Tomatoes changed how they did audience scores. Now they do both verified and unverified audience scores. And of course, the one they show you first is the verified score. The thing about that is, to become verified on Rotten Tomatoes, you have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. You have to register with like Fandango or whatever, sign up for this, sign up for that, verify this. The point is, it's a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through to become verified. And the only people that are going to do that are people that go to the movies regularly and like consistently giving their opinions about pretty much almost anything, especially when it comes to franchise fans like the MCU. What I'm trying to get at here is that the people who are going to give ratings for these movies that are verified audience members are probably people that are already going in determining that they're going to like the movie. So am I calling verified audience scores bias? Yeah, I am a little bit. Now, does it work in the opposite point too? Are there a lot of unverified audience members that are going to come in and they're going to dislike a movie having not watched it? Yeah, sure. But the thing is, Rotten Tomatoes shows that verified score first. And most everybody's not going to take the time to click and double check on the verified, unverified. Now, there are going to be some that say, oh, it's a conspiracy then between Disney and Marvel and Rotten Tomatoes, and they're trying to promote it. Honestly, I don't think that's the case. If anybody has a conspiracy about this whole verified audience thing, maybe it's the theaters and the ticket sellers. People like Fandango that I was talking about earlier, that they've partnered with Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, Fandango is in the business of selling tickets. So if they're used as part of the sign-up process to become verified audiences, and then the verified audience that they know are going to like movies and positively rate films may help drive people to buy tickets to that movie, yeah, I could see how that might be a beneficial symbiotic relationship to the two. And you could argue there's some kind of conspiracy there. But other than that, there's really nothing you can do to prove there's some kind of link between Disney and Rotten Tomatoes. It's just the nature of how the two businesses work and the nature of how Rotten Tomatoes does their counting now. Now, in terms of the money this movie's actually making, here's the movie that everybody wants to compare it to, right? The other more spy thriller Captain America film, Captain America Winter Soldier. And you can see worldwide over its lifetime, it ended up making $714 million. That was on a budget of about $180 million. Of course, that's also before marketing costs were factored in, which were, again, probably a lot less when this movie came out in April of 2014, more than a decade ago at this point. And also one thing that Winter Soldier had going for it was its post-release sales, about $80 million worth. One thing Captain America Brave New World is not going to have going for it because, nobody buys DVDs and Blu-rays anymore. Another thing this film is not going to have going for it is streaming. Because back in 2014, this was the era when places like Netflix license Marvel movies to put them on their streaming networks. Now Disney has their own streaming network, and that has costs attached to it. Server costs that they have to store the movie on, which can be very, very expensive. And the way Disney justifies this by not getting money from licensing deals is that they literally paid themselves to stream the movie. They move money from one pocket to the other pocket and say that it's money the movie made. And they do a little numbers figuring to be like, oh, well, this movie probably brought in this many subscribers, so we'll assign this dollar amount to it. And it's absolute BS. They have absolutely no idea whether or not that's true. It's just a way to inflate the numbers of the movie. So when you factor all that in, and you factor that they're already trying to inflate this movie's numbers by giving those $12 million in preview sales, and they're trying to paint it as some kind of underdog in terms of its cinema score and all that. And they're trying to paint that the money that's made, almost $200 million, is actually super, super successful. It is wild because the actual movie that it could be directly compared to was one of the worst flops in Marvel history. And it's still behind that. But the spin is already in for this movie, it looks like, and it's all we're going to get from them now. And it looks like they're going to try desperately to make this look like a win, and it's just not. But those are just my thoughts on all this. If you have your own thoughts, go and leave them in the comments. If you like this video, go and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it. We'll talk to you again later.